All right, our next video for our geometry unit, we're going to continue talking about area, but now we're not just talking about area of a trapezoid, of a triangle, of a rectangle. We're extending to something called composite figures, which we also call irregular polygons. Now, what is a composite figure or irregular polygon? It is a shape made up of two or more geometric shapes. So for instance, let's take a look at this shape here given. And we're going to look at this shape three different ways. So looking at this first way, we have something that looks like we put two rectangles and kind of just squished them together and made two different shapes. So let's think about it. If this is made up of two different rectangles, how are we going to find the area? So I'm going to give you 5 seconds. Think about it. How are we going to find the area of a shape that is made up of more than one shape? So think about it for a minute. All right, so let's take a look at it. Let's think of what you were thinking. Let's put it on paper. So I see that I have a rectangle here, and I have another rectangle here, and they're both one shape. So what we can do here to find the area is we want to break the shape up. Now, write this at the top of your paper just so you can have it. The word decompose. Decompose. That means to break up. Split up. Split. Oh, I spelled split wrong. Split up. So we want to break up, split up. We want to make this into some shapes that we're familiar with. And so I'm going to go ahead and break this up. And now we can see, let me use a different color. We have a rectangle up here. And we have another rectangle down here. And luckily, we have the measurements of each. For the rectangle at the top, we know to find the area of a rectangle, we got to do our area formula, A equals base times height. Well, base times height here, we have 10 times 5. A equals 10 times 5. 10 times 5 is 50. So the area of the top rectangle is 10 times 5, which is 50 units squared. And then we have the rectangle at the bottom, which has a base of 4 and a height of 3. And 4 times 3 gives me 12. Now, did we start with these shapes being separate? No, we started with them being together. So our answer needs to be one final answer. We can't say in the end, oh, the area is 50 units squared and the area is 12 units squared. No, we need to have one final answer. So now what do you think we're going to do to get one final answer? Yeah, we're going to add these numbers together. And so 50 plus 12 gives me 62 units squared. And that is going to be the answer to the area of this composite, or what we call irregular polygon. All right, so now we're going to solve this two other ways, just to make sure we're aware that that's not the only way we could solve this type of problem. So I've drawn it another time right here. Now looking at this, some of you may have noticed that we could split this composite figure another way. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Some of you might have noticed that we could split it this way. So if we split it that way, we have some of the measurements we need. So let me go ahead and emphasize the two shapes we're looking at. So we have one rectangle here, and we have another one here. All right. So for now, I see that I have some measurements that are important. We have the 5, we need the 5, and we also have the 4 here. But we need some other measurements that are going to help us find the base and the height of these shapes so we can multiply them together to get our desired answer. So how are we going to do that? Because I'm missing some things. Can I use the 10 for this smaller rectangle here? I used the 10 before because I was talking about this entire rectangle. But now I'm looking at a smaller rectangle where we have 5 as our height. Now, what is our base of this rectangle? How can I find this information? So let's look a little closer. I know that this length here and this length here add up to give me 10. This length plus this length add up to give me 10 because that's the measurement of the entire thing. So if I know if this length is 4, what would this length have to be? So let's write that down. I know that this here is 4, so what would this length have to be? So let's talk about it again. We know that this length plus this length has to add up to give me a sum of 10. So what plus 4 is equal to 10? Well, let's subtract. 10 minus 4, I'm left with 6. So 6 plus 4 will give me the measurement of 10. So now I have my other measurement. 5 times 6 is this area of the rectangle, my base times my height. And so 5 times 6 is 30 units squared. So now let's take a look at this other rectangle. So we have our base of 4, but what is the height? I can't use 3. 3 is just this small length. 3 is what I used here to get this 12. So 4 times what? So taking a closer look, I notice that this length is the same as this length. So if this is 5, this is also 5 over here. And I already know that this right here is 3. So 5 plus 3 would have to be 8. And so 5 plus 3 gives me 8. And so now to find the area, we would need to do 8 times 4, and that is 32 units squared. But once again, we don't want to just have two separate answers. We want to combine the two areas together. And so 30 plus 32 would be 62 units squared. Once again, our answer is still 62 units squared. We just did it in a different way. So now we have one last way we can do this. Some of you may have also noticed it this way. So before we were decomposing, we were breaking the shape up to find the area of each shape and then putting those two areas together by adding. So now I want to compose. So I'm going to put different shapes together, even shapes that aren't there, to find the area of the entire thing and then subtract away what I don't need. And so let me show you what I mean. So instead of breaking apart, I notice there's a rectangle here that's missing from a bigger piece. So I'm going to draw in the rest of this rectangle. Do we see by me adding in this over here, I now have a full rectangle, one big rectangle. And so my area would have to be 10, my height, my base, times my height. And so my height would have to be, like we found just a second ago, this length is 8. So let's go ahead and write that here as well. So for this entire thing, we have 10 times 8. And 10 times 8 is equal to 80. 80 units squared. So now we know our answer isn't 80. We know our answer is 62. So how in the world are we getting 80? Well, remember, we took the area of this entire rectangle as if this piece is there. Now, how am I going to get this piece away or taken away from the total area? What is the area of this shape here? So we got to find that area. I know that the height is 3, but what is this length here? Well, we did already find this. So we said that this plus this had to be equal to 10. So if this is 4, this other length would have to be 6. So the base of this smaller rectangle that we added on would have to be 6 times 3. And 6 times 3 equals 18. So now we have to look at it a little closer. We know that this area here doesn't really exist. We added that on. We put that there. And so now, because we put it there, to find our final answer, we're going to have to subtract it away. And so let's do that. 80 minus 18, we have 10. 7, 10 minus 8 is 2. 7 minus 1 is 6. 62 units squared. This is the same answer we got here, the same answer we got here, and the same answer we got up here. We did 2 different strategies, whether we were decomposing into 2 different shapes or adding on a shape, but to get our final answer, we needed to subtract it away. Now, this video was just to show you there are so many ways to solve problems like this. You don't have to feel limited to one. So when you see those figures, figure out, do you want to break it up or do you want to add on to it? All right, well, we'll do some practice. Talk to you in a little bit.